Danny was the kind of guy people liked instantly. He had a quick wit and an even quicker smile. He was always surrounded by friends, laughing and telling stories. Life seemed to come easily to him. He was lucky in love too, or so he thought. He'd had his share of girlfriends, but none of them were quite right. That all changed when he met Lisa. Danny first saw Lisa at a coffee shop. She was reading a book, her brow furrowed in concentration. Something about her captivated him. Maybe it was her fiery red hair or her piercing green eyes. He couldn't help but introduce himself. Lisa was different from anyone he'd ever met. She was intelligent and mysterious, with a hint of vulnerability that drew him in. They started dating, and Danny was smitten. Lisa was everything he'd ever wanted. She was beautiful, intelligent, and shared his passion for old movies and classic rock. They spent hours talking, laughing, and getting to know each other. For the first time in his life, Danny felt like he had found the one. He introduced Lisa to his friends. They all adored her. She was charming and funny, and she fit in perfectly. Danny was on cloud nine. He thought he had hit the jackpot with Lisa. He couldn't imagine his life without her. He was happier than he had ever been. Their relationship blossomed quickly. Danny loved spending time with Lisa. She was always up for an adventure, whether it was trying a new restaurant or going on a weekend getaway. She made him laugh, and she challenged him intellectually. Lisa was affectionate and attentive. She showered Danny with compliments and gifts. She seemed to know exactly what he wanted, even before he did. He felt like he was living in a fairy tale. Danny's apartment, once a bachelor pad, became their shared sanctuary. They decorated it together, filling it with books, plants, and cozy throws. Every corner held a memory of their love. Sundays became their special day. They would wake up late, make pancakes, and spend the day curled up on the couch watching movies. Danny felt truly happy. He thought he had found his soulmate in Lisa. He couldn't imagine life without her. He started thinking about their future together, picturing a lifetime of happiness by her side. He was completely oblivious to the warning signs that were starting to appear. Lisa's behavior started to change subtly at first. Her sweet demeanor began to sour. Her loving texts became possessive, demanding to know his whereabouts constantly. Danny brushed it off as insecurity, reassuring her of his love. Her calls increased, interrupting his work and conversations with friends. She'd question him about where he'd been and who he'd been with. The light-hearted teasing took on a sharper edge. Danny found himself making excuses to avoid her calls, feeling suffocated by her constant need for attention. Then came the unexpected visits. Danny would find Lisa on his doorstep, unannounced. She'd claim she just wanted to see him. He noticed the suspicion in her eyes as she scanned his apartment. Her once charming habit of buying him small gifts became overwhelming. The apartment, once a symbol of their love, began to feel crowded with trinkets and souvenirs. Each gift felt like a shackle, a reminder of her suffocating presence. Danny started feeling trapped. The woman he thought he knew seemed to be slipping away, replaced by someone possessive and controlling. When Danny finally confronted Lisa about her behavior, she became defensive, accusing him of not loving her enough. Her tears and apologies always disarmed him. He hated seeing her upset. He wanted to believe that everything was okay. Friends started expressing concern about Lisa's clinginess. They noticed how she would monopolize Danny's time at gatherings. He found himself defending their relationship. He told himself that they were just going through a rough patch. Lisa started showing up at Danny's work unannounced. She would sit in the coffee shop across the street, watching him through the window. His co-workers noticed her intense gaze. Danny felt embarrassed and exposed. He started making excuses to avoid seeing Lisa. He would invent work deadlines or family obligations. He just needed some space to breathe. The once effortless joy of their relationship was gone, replaced by a growing sense of unease. The red flags were impossible to ignore. Danny knew he needed to get out of the relationship. Breaking up with Lisa was the hardest thing Danny had ever done. She pleaded with him, promising to change. Her tears turned to anger. She accused him of being selfish and not caring about her feelings. He stood his ground, his voice trembling as he told her it was over. The following weeks were a living nightmare. Lisa bombarded his phone with hundreds of calls and texts. She left long, rambling voicemails, begging him to take her back. He blocked her number, but she found new ways to contact him. Then came the notes. At first they were left on his car windshield, scrawled messages of love and despair. The notes became more frequent, appearing in his mailbox, slipped under his door. The handwriting grew wilder, more desperate. The messages turned menacing, filled with accusations and threats. Photos started appearing, pictures of Danny at home, at work, with friends. He hadn't taken these pictures. Lisa must have been following him, documenting his every move. Fear gnawed at him. He felt like a prisoner in his own life. He was being watched, hunted by the woman he once loved. One night, Danny woke to an unsettling feeling. The air was thick with an unfamiliar perfume, Lisa's signature scent. His heart pounded in his chest. He could hear his blood rushing in his ears. He scanned the room, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. His gaze fell upon the bed. The blankets were pulled up, forming a lump on the opposite side. A cold dread washed over him. He knew with chilling certainty that he wasn't alone. Mustering all his courage, Danny flipped on the bedside lamp. The sudden light revealed a terrifying sight. There, beneath the sheets, lay Lisa. Her eyes were wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. Her skin was pale and cold. She looked lifeless, like a porcelain doll. "Lisa!" Danny's voice was a choked whisper. He didn't dare to breathe. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the figure on his bed. How did she get in? What was she doing here? A wave of nausea washed over him. He felt faint, his legs turning to jelly. He stumbled back from the bed, his heart pounding in his chest. Then, as quickly as she appeared, Lisa was gone. The lump under the covers shifted, and for a horrifying moment, Danny thought she was going to lunge at him. But when he blinked, the bed was empty. He raced to the window. It was locked from the inside. He checked the closet, under the bed, every nook and cranny of his small apartment. There was no sign of Lisa. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Danny was left trembling in the middle of his room, his mind reeling. Had he imagined the whole thing? Was the stress of the breakup finally driving him crazy? He felt a chill run down his spine as he remembered the lifeless look in Lisa's eyes. He knew with terrifying certainty that he hadn't imagined any of it. Lisa was real, and she was closer than he thought. He called the police, his voice shaking as he tried to explain what had happened. They arrived, skeptical yet intrigued by his story. They dusted for fingerprints, finding nothing unusual. They questioned his neighbours, but no one had seen Lisa entering or leaving the building. They left, promising to look into it, but Danny could tell by their expressions that they thought he was crazy. Days turned into sleepless nights as Danny lived in a perpetual state of fear. He installed new locks, checked his windows obsessively, and slept with a baseball bat beside his bed. He couldn't shake the feeling that Lisa was watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike again. One day, while cleaning his apartment, Danny noticed something strange. There was a faint scratching sound coming from beneath his floorboards. He froze, listening intently. The scratching continued, a slow, deliberate sound that sent chills down his spine. He grabbed a toolbox and knelt down, his heart pounding in his chest. He pried up the loose floorboard, his breath catching in his throat as he peered into the darkness below. There, in the cramped space beneath his feet, he found a nest. It wasn't a bird's nest, but a carefully constructed structure made of twigs, hair, and scraps of fabric. And among the debris, Danny saw something that made his blood run cold. Photographs. Dozens of them scattered throughout the nest. Pictures of him, sleeping, eating, working, living his life. But these photos were different. They were close-ups, taken from strange angles. As if someone had been hiding beneath his floorboards, watching him through the cracks. A wave of nausea washed over him as he realized the horrifying truth. Lisa hadn't been a figment of his imagination. She had been living beneath his feet all along. The police returned, their skepticism replaced by grim determination as they surveyed the unsettling discovery. The nest, along with its disturbing contents, was carefully collected as evidence. Forensic teams dusted for fingerprints, analysed the hair samples, and searched for any trace of Lisa's DNA. But she had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a chilling testament to her obsession. Days turned into weeks, then months, and the investigation slowly went cold. Danny moved to a new city, a new apartment, hoping to outrun the terror that had invaded his life. But the memory of Lisa, her haunting eyes, and the sinister nest beneath his floorboards stayed with him. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to resurface. His life, once filled with laughter and light-hearted charm, was forever tainted by the darkness that Lisa had brought into it. He was left with a haunting reminder that love, once a source of joy and comfort, could easily twist into something sinister and terrifying.